and welcome to KennyRoy.com. I'm Kenny Roy. This is the Ask Video Mail for the week of January 7th, 2013. Welcome to the site to all you new members, and welcome back to the old members. The Ask Video Mail is your chance to get your question in character animation or performance answered in a video just like this, but I need your question if I'm going to answer it. So please send your questions to webmaster@KennyRoy.com. I go through all the questions and I answer the ones that I think will help the most people. There is no such thing as a stupid question, and it is the best way to get the most out of your subscription. Hopefully there are a lot of new members here. Right now I am doing a little bit of a giveaway. You know, it's a New Year's resolution. You recommit yourself to education, recommit yourself to animation and workflow. Welcome if you are here because of one of the giveaways. If you're here on a free trial, definitely take a look around, soak up as much as you can, and definitely if you are on a free trial, it's the best time to turn in a question for the Ask Video Mail. So please send one in. Try it out, give it a shot, and I'd love to see your question in my inbox soon. Okay. 2013, we are here. It's a new year. A lot of exciting things going on for me at the studio. And just personally, just having a great time these days and really enjoying life. So I hope you are too. If you've made some New Year's resolutions, stick to them. You know, do them. You know, take life by the horns and really just dive right in. Let's all have fun together. Let's grow together. Let's continue. Let's make 2013 awesome together. All right. So just thanks for being around. I'm very thankful for what I have, and the site is a big part of my life. So again, one more time, thank you for being here and rocking on with me. So, man, this one's been a long time in coming. I just feel like there's a lot of, this video mail is on hands, and I get often asked about hands and to do a hand lecture, and I want to do a hand lecture, except it is so specific. It is so shot specific that even to just get past those first couple, about 15 minutes worth of just tips, which is what I'm going to do in this one, it is really, really difficult and super shot specific. So the reason I haven't done the hand lecture is because I haven't quite figured out a good way to approach it from a workflow stance yet. So I'll just give you my tips in this video mail, and then if you've been one of the people, so this is kind of answering like a dozen questions. I'm going to show you. Well, let me show you the question right now, and but like there have been at least a dozen people that have asked about hands. So hopefully this is answering a lot of people's questions like right now, and you feel like this video is for you. But let's take a look at the question. All right, so now we know what we're talking about. Anyway, so with hands, again, like I haven't really sussed out how to do like a really like workflow based full hand lecture, but there is a good, you know, I can go through a lot of the issues with hands, and specifically answering this question about, like, you know, finding that middle ground, and it always does come down to workflow. So I am going to talk a little bit about that. Actually, let me start with that. With workflow, again, if you are committed to workflow, you know that you have a way that is set, that you can edit your workflow, and you edit your workflow with practice and experience, like dictating you, informing you how to make those adjustments, you know, for better success, right? You don't just sit down at every single shot and just start new. Like, oh, I'm gonna start with the hands this time. That's not what you do, right? So normally what happens with most animators is, as they're learning, the hands are something that they just kind of do with the pose. You're like posing your hands, and you're adding it, depending on how much detail you feel like adding into your poses. You're not really thinking about how the hands move, if the hands move differently than the rest of the body does. And we do this with the face at the exact same time. So the hands and the face are very closely related in terms of workflow. So it's analogous to the face, so I'm going to compare it to the face for just a minute. When you're working with the face, I like to see all of the fundamentals put into the face. So if you have like a surprise face, you don't just go from straight to surprise. You get a little bit of anticipation, a little bit of a crunching up before you go to that big, wide open face, and then the impact is even stronger. Not only that, but the principle of anticipation applies the same way in the face as it does in the body. So you get that thought. You also get that more fine-tuned control over the impact that you're giving because of that contrast that you're creating. The audience can follow it easier. Also, all the things that anticipation gives you in the body, it works in the face as well. I love to see, squash and stretch in the face at the same time, using that kind of contrast. Again, really fleshy faces that have a lot of life in them. I like follow through in the face. I like it when, if there's like a big motion in the eyebrows, kind of like move like really quickly down. I like to see them kind of like, have that little bit of overshoot and then settle, like they have a little bit of weight to them. Okay, not maybe on like your dainty female characters per se, but with most characters, your gnomes and trolls and things like that, really physical stuff. But so as you can see, like in the face, all of those principles apply, and the reason that we try to keep the face till last is because the body really affects the face. It's the same thing with the hands. So let's switch over for a second. All of those things, all those principles, you need to have in the you have to have that in the hands, and you have to really focus on keeping everything open and editable for as long as possible in the hands, if you can. And that needs to be the main goal of your workflow. So sometimes people like pose the hands like way too much, too early, and what that leads to is you getting into these hand poses that are like a little too like weird and customized to hold for as long as you are, or movements and transitions between hand poses that are a little too fast and a little too, just like too much. Okay, so that's why my workflow would be to pose the hands literally as loosely as you do like the face while you're blocking. Okay, even if you know that it's like a crazy like hand pose that you're getting into on that frame, I would just pretty much like position, like, rotate the wrist in place and maybe do a rough pass that is just like thumb and like master grip or master cup, right? So if it's going to be like, like maybe you're doing like a, I don't know, like someone doing magic or something like that, and it's going to be like that. I would never get all of that detail into my blocking, all right? I would get whatever I can with the thumb, right? And then the hand and like cup. Like that's probably the most you could probably get into that. Why? Because the finger posing is just like moving, those little shaper controls that you get on facial rigs sometimes. You get a jaw, and then sometimes you get phonemes or visemes, and then you get those little like secondary controllers where you can like really move those things around. That's basically what doing this is, okay? And the second reason is because I always say, never do with the finger what you can do with the hand. Never do with the hand what you can do with the forearm. Never do with the forearm what you can do with the entire arm. Never do just with the arm what you can do with the torso. And never do just with your torso what you can really center and do with the hips. Because body language tells a much deeper story than like a little superfluous gesture, like a little wasted flick of the wrist or rolling of the fingers. Okay, so that being the case, everything that you're doing, everything that makes its way all the way out to your hands should be a thought that's very well developed in the body. Okay, so I like to say that hand poses, or actually hand movement in the hands, is the flourish, is just like the tiny little, curly cue on the end of the sentence that is the body movement. All right, so so this is the point, even if all you're thinking about and like your main focus is like this weird finger moment, like let's say someone is they're getting really excited and they're like feeling really evil, and then they go from like doing this to kind of like it boiling out, and they get all excited and do something like that with their hands, right? So those are two different kind of moments. This is almost like a cycle, and then that kind of like boiling and whatever. No matter what, even though as you're animating that, and I know because I've done that and I've been there, even though like this is really like the action. The action is all about the hands. You have to forget about the hands, and while you're blocking it, again, I would just like keep those fingers together and just use grip and cup, and just work. If anything, work a little bit in the wrists while they're doing it, but really focusing so much more on the root. I'm going to get rid of my hands, making this work, right? Making that happen, and then adding the arms in, and then adding the wrists in, and then adding at the very end, adding those fingers. You know, that kind of layering approach. Okay. And then another tip is that so much of the finger movement. All right. So normally the fingers move a lot less than we think they do. So a pose change like in the hands will normally be a little bit more lazy of a pose change than you really kind of think. So what I just did was I did a gesture and I kind of pulled my hand back, and you might animate it by when you pull the hand back, like really going to kind of like a very, you know, super relaxed kind of cupped pose. But I went back here and really I just got a little bit of cup on my ring and my pinky finger. I went blah, 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 you know, and I brought it back. It really just went from here to here. So I noticed there's a little bit too much, you know, squeezing and flexing going on those pose changes. And again, I'm relying a lot more on the body. Every single time I did that little thing right there, there was a little bit of movement in my waist. I was offering something right here, blah, 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 and I come back. You know, if you don't have this, look what happens, blah, 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 blah. Right? Does it actually look like I'm stopping my thought and kind of like finishing and like waiting for you to start responding, right? If I take that out, so watch my body, I'm gesturing and I'm telling you something, and then I'm about to stop and wait for you to answer, and then I, you know, bring this back. My body does nothing. Now I'm going to do it just body, no hand, right? Blah, 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 blah. Right? You get so much stronger. It's clear as it's night and day. You get so much stronger an impression and in such a clearer story that I'm done talking and I'm waiting for you to respond when I use just the body. So too often we rely on the hands. And so to kind of like put a tack in the question here, the balance is always how little how little do you need to add after your body is telling the clearest story, point by point, that it can. All right. So how much do I need to add in the hands if I'm like blah 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 blah, and now I'm waiting for you to say something, right? If I can add just a tiny bit on the hand to support that, then I'll add a tiny bit. But you don't want to go blah, 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 like fling the hand out the blah, 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 and then I'm listening. You know, see all that stuff, it's so wasted and it distracts from the real story, which is being told by my body language, isn't it? Right? So if I can add a little, I will. And here's a little bit on top of that. Blah, 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 blah. Right? And just a little bit of bend on those fingers. Not like cupping it, but just a little bit of bend coming back. Okay? I actually critiqued an animation on the 11-Second Club by Peter Nagy or Nagy. I never understood. I asked when I did the first critique. I said like, oh, it's by Peter Nagy. And I'm super lazy. I never actually found out how to pronounce his name. So I'm sorry, Peter. I asked him if I could bring it up in this video mail, and he said yes. So I just want to show you just something that is interesting about the way he used the fingers here as it pertains to the fundamentals. And I think you'll agree it's actually very, very, very clever. So let's take a look. Oh. Cool. All right. So here we have the animation. So let me just play it once through. So a lot is going on. A lot is going on in the hands in this shot. And I wanted to point out two things. The first thing is that the guy who is gesturing, his hands make gestures and then they transition into just contributing to either it's a full body gesture or an arc, and he actually like bends the hand and it takes an arc that's like very cartoony, and like the hand almost goes like kind of broken to like fit that profile. And then the guy with the guitar, his hands they're moving very, 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 very cleverly because they're moving so minimally, and then they rest. And so the moving hold with the hand is something that I'll talk about right at the end of this video mail. Okay. So first, let's take a look at the guy that's angry here. Okay. So check this out. Okay. This gesture where he swings his hand, right? See that? See how brilliant that is? Look how when the character's body takes on an arc like this whole like negative space, how it's working with the body, all of that is just beautifully applied to the to the hand pose, and it actually works like over 2 frames, right? Like he actually keeps it going, and I'm not sure if you would consider this as broken as I do, but if you look, oh, that's a kind of a bummer with the annotate. It's showing me this play thing. All right, well, anyway. If you look at this under here, it's actually kind of broken. The fingers are bent backwards, and this one's whatever, but these ones are transitioning into starting to do that gesture. So this is brilliant use of transitioning between a hand contributing to an arc in the full body, through here, and then going into what is basically a gesture. So check this out. On the next frame, look at this awesome gesture. It's more than your normal kind of like, fling your hand, like, what are you doing? Kind of like, pointing, gesture. It's almost like he's like throwing dice, or he's whipping his fingers. If I'm not mistaken, that's definitely squash and stretch on those 2 fingers right there. That definitely looks like the model's been pushed at least a little bit. So there you have the fundamentals appearing in the hand animation as well. And just like look how interesting this is, like as the shape kind of unfolds. I did a video mail on looking at animated shots, for reference and inspiration in December. And this is definitely the moment that is very inspiring to me. And when I watch this, I just have to frame through this over and over and over. But then remember, the workflow is to frame through it a few times. Now watch it at speed. And you get that holistic impact as well. It's so good at speed too. You can still pick it out at speed as well. All right. Same thing when he does these gestures right here. He whips his hands up like this, and down, and look how the squash and stretch almost gets transferred to his head. You see that? It's almost like his hands like bring his head down and his nose down. It's really, really fantastic. So in that character, I would say that it was a brilliant use, and I harped on this in the 11-second club critique that I did as well. I'd say it's a brilliant use of hands because of how masterfully this animator figured out how to switch from the gesture, the explicit gesture, and then going into just like a body moment. And the hands are contributing where they need to, and then coming back inside the body and the overall performance, the silhouette, whatever it needs to contribute to, just on and off. It's really, really fantastic. And then the thing I wanted to point out is that if you watch this screen right hand, it is actually moving very, very, very slightly on each one of the chords, right? So he's playing two different notes, and the fingers actually move. And then watch how it grips the guitar. Okay, you're gonna like this. Okay. So that little bit of movement is very, very great. It's very economical, it's not distracting, but it contributes. It actually adds to the realism of the shot. Then what happens is he takes a rest pose, but when he moves forward, watch that index finger tuck in, and then when he's finally finished that body movement, watch the first knuckle flatten out. Okay, I need something there to push on. Watch the first knuckle flatten out just a little bit, all right? Like this, okay? Just very, very, very subtle. Watch that happen again. Right there. See when he leans forward? All right, let's watch it together here. All right, boom. See that finger tuck in, that index finger tuck in, and then when he's finished moving forward, right in here is where those knuckles flatten out. Okay, and what I want to talk about is moving holds with fingers. You guys know that in a moving hold, because I've given this advice many times. How long are we right now? This is a long one. I've given this advice many times, which is that the bigger muscles actually move more in a moving hold than the smaller muscles, right? So if you had to hold your arm out like this, right, for 10 minutes, you could keep your fist for 10 minutes. That's not hard at all, right? Because it's a small muscle. But your shoulder would eventually, it would just fall off after 10 minutes. No way, right? So that's basically the idea behind a moving hold. The bigger muscles move more than the smaller muscles. Well, the hands are, like I just demonstrated, some of the smallest muscles you have in your body. So with a moving hold, you need to do a lot less than you guys are probably doing with the hands. A hand pose will not go from this to like this over 20 frames. It will go from this to like this over 20 frames. Very, 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 very little in the moving hold, unless it's gripping something. So this animator again did something really, really, really cool, which is adjusting the grip. We do that all the time, right? If we're holding something, we are almost constantly, it's moving around in our hand. And if we're gesturing with something, or even if we come to like a standstill, there's a little bit of play going on at all times. And you can really tell when something is off. And take a look at your own animation. If you've done this, you can really tell if something is off when you're looking at somebody. Like if you have a character who's holding onto a table or pushing a shopping cart, if there's no play, no movement in the fingers, especially on the moving holds, it looks really, 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 really like out of this world. It looks totally alien, that it's like perfectly still. You need to have a lot more, you just relax the hands, get them a lot more fleshy and moving and adjusting that grip constantly. It's almost like eye darts. You almost can't have enough micro eye darts, especially when someone's like talking to somebody. You can almost not show me animation that has too many micro eye darts. It's the same thing with adjusting the grip. It's small. If you watch that animation over again, check it out on 11 Second Club. See if you can detect the top of those fingers flattening out. It's the perfect amount. It's the perfect size. This animator did well. It's stellar work. So, but that's it. That's kind of what you know, we can get into in terms of you know, fingertips. In kind of a 20-minute format. Otherwise, it's a really specific issue, and it's very shot specific. So if you guys still would like an in-depth hands lecture, maybe with some demonstration, let me know in the resource wish list, which is in the forums. Everyone can go in there and suggest lectures that you want to see. I go in there regularly, so I'll think about it if you guys still want it after this. But hopefully this was enough to get you started, jumpstart your workflow on hands, and improve your animation across the board. Great questions from all 12 of you who've sent that in before. Please send in more questions. Send them to webmaster@kennyroy.com. Remember, there's no such thing as a stupid question, so send one in today. Don't be shy. You can even send me your Maya file. I love to get those. All right, that'll do it. Good luck with your animation, and as always, rock on.